up, ladies and gents? Welcome back. I'm Rick, and today we're going to take a look at a presentation on psychedelics by Graham Hancock. Mr. Hancock is mainly famous for bringing pseudo-archaeology and alternate history to the mainstream through his books and appearances on Ancient Aliens, and his many times going on the Joe Rogan podcast. Just like he drops his trousers and leaves a big, steaming, greasy turd in the punch bowl of ancient archaeology, so does he follow suit while squatting over the psychedelic punch bowl. Graham Hancock is one of those dudes where for the longest time I couldn't really tell if he was being deliberately deceptive or if he genuinely believed the feel-good fairy tale BS he was spreading around. But now it's pretty clear to me that he knows he's full of shit. A few years back, Flint Dibble bent him over and paddled his ass in the name of good science and respectable archaeology, and his response to getting his bullshit called out has been so despicable and loathsome and appalling and disgraceful that it really has me wondering, do psychedelics really make people better? I mean, psychedelics definitely made me better, but Graham Hancock seems to be worse. Joe Rogan used to be a voice for psychedelic enlightenment and exploration. Maybe not a reasonable voice, but a voice. And then he went from being a mushroom-eating Bernie supporter to one of the biggest disinformation-spreading, MAGA ass-kissing dirtbags in the country. Really does make you wonder, doesn't it? Anyways, back to Graham. After his beatdown by Flint, Graham Hancock disappeared from the airwaves to lick his wounds and think about his life choices. But then 6 months later, he said, screw it, this is my grift, I'm the king of this grift, I've invested decades into this grift, and it's time to get this show back on the road. Dear dumbasses that cling to my childish fairy tales with cult-like devotion, your king hath returned. I wish I had more time to go into all the spicy drama that ensued, but please swing by Flint Dibble's channel or check out Professor Dave's big pseudo-archaeology debunk. Simply put, Graham Hancock has no evidence at all to back up any of his fairy tales. Zilch, nada, bupkis, none, Nathan. But what he does have in spades is plenty of fallacious rhetoric, meant to deceive the gullible dreamers into thinking he's got mountains and mountains of evidence. He doesn't, and now everybody knows it. His Atlantis/Ancient Aliens grift has been permanently crippled and will spend its remaining days shitting through a bag. Yet for reasons that boggle the mind, there is one community where Mr. Hancock still has a tiny shred of credibility and is still welcomed with open arms to spread any old feel-good line of happy horse shit he wants. You guessed it, it's psychedelics. So that's where I come in. Now that I'm well versed in Mr. Hancock's dark arts of dirtbaggery, I can counter his BS with a little scientific sorcery of my own. Let's begin. A good a place as any to start is the topic of consciousness. Graham Hancock likes to exploit what he believes to be gaps in human knowledge. He wants his loyal followers to believe there's all this stuff we don't know yet about blah blah blah, so he can fill it in with any old BS he wants and say that he's exploring the mysteries of the universe. Anytime someone from the scientific community says, hey, we know this stuff, he says science is trying to take the mystery out of life, as if that's a bad thing. Yeah, no shit, dummy. That's what science does, expand human knowledge. So he really holds a deep animosity towards the scientific community for, knowing stuff. Usually stuff that ruins his grift. And for Graham Hancock's grift to exist, it means he's got to do a lot of cherry-picking all the little bits of science that he likes and hand-wave dismisses everything about science that contradicts his narrative. And consciousness is no different. Here's a little taste. This is a talk he did with another wooey pseudoscience jerk-off named Rupert Sheldrake back in 2021.
Therefore, for the materialist, the existence of phenomena like the sense of being stared at or telepathy they're impossible because they couldn't possibly happen the minds couldn't possibly have an influence on other minds at a distance in some mysterious way, because they're all confined to the inside of the head. Therefore, it's absolutely essential for materialists to deny these phenomena, which is why they have organizations like the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, magazines like the Skeptical Inquirer, and why the materialist hitmen patrol Wikipedia to make sure that biographies of people like you and me are suitably edited, portray us as flakes or pseudoscientists or whatever. It's all to maintain this belief that the mind is nothing but the brain.
Science doesn't acknowledge the existence of telepathy for a reason. There's zero evidence for it. These bozos are trying to frame science not wanting to acknowledge ESP as an attempt to control people's minds or the narrative. It's embarrassing. There's also a reason of why gullible people fall for this stuff and highly skeptical people like me don't. And materialist hitmen are patrolling Wikipedia, huh? Hey buddy, if you don't want the National Council of Skeptical Inquiry all over your ass, then how about you stop spreading around this crackpot nonsense? Well, that's enough from Sheldrake. Let's see what Graham Hancock has to say.
It looks to me like that particular faction of science wants to exert control over human consciousness. And to limit the scope of what we may explore and discuss about consciousness. And as you rightly say, that faction is extremely active and has its expeditionaries out there on the internet doing their best to slur and scorn the names of anyone who considers anything other than the materialist view of consciousness. And then secondly, I find that we live in a society where actually the state claims to own our consciousness. Of course, it doesn't make that claim overtly or directly, but the very fact that a person may be arrested for possessing or using drugs that alter consciousness is a sign that the state does claim to own our consciousness and to define for us how and in which ways we may use our consciousness. Is it just that a group of influential people want their view to prevail, or is there some sort of demonic project to shut down and delimit human consciousness?
Oh, sure. It's not that you have zero evidence. It's that the scientific community is attempting to control people's consciousness. He's using the fact that he gets laughed out of every university on Earth to make the case that it's because there's a global cabal trying to limit what people think about. It's not because he's full of shit. It's them trying to control the narrative. Jesus Christ. Conscious experiences are subjective, which makes them impossible to test by scientists. This is why science refers to it as the hard problem with consciousness. But two facts do exist. One, consciousness comes from our brains, and two, the only place in the universe we've detected it so far are creatures that have developed very sophisticated brains and nervous systems that took millions of years to evolve. But all this stuff about consciousness is basically Graham Hancock's psychedelic bread and butter, and a theme we'll see throughout the rest of this video. Graham Hancock is basically turning consciousness into the new quantum woo, where he says it's this big mystery and therefore he can fill it in with any crap that he wants. I want consciousness to mean any magical thing I really wish were true. Psychedelics has something to do with consciousness, so the war on drugs equals to a war on the human mind, or a war on everything I really, really wish were true. And then follows it up with wah wah, science always crushes my dreams, wah wah, freedom and liberty, something something entities, wah. That's his whole psychedelic shtick. Geez, I wonder why and how this poor soul would so frequently find himself at ends with all the folks out there that actually know what the fuck they're talking about. That's a real head scratcher there. Honestly, I could end this video right here, but where's the fun in that? So now that we have all this in mind, let's go take a look at a presentation Graham Hancock did back in 2014.
We've been brought up the last 40, 50 years in the absurd climate of the war on drugs, that wicked enterprise of lies and deceit that has been imposed upon us by society seeking to use fear and to create an internal enemy in our society to justify ever larger armed bureaucracies and ever larger control mechanisms. And yet I think it's obvious when we look at our society today and its impact upon the world that we live in a society that is literally insane. In a psychopathic manner, a society that is causing horrendous consequences, both on the human race and around this beautiful planet that the universe has given us. And therefore, we should distrust absolutely any of the pronouncements that society makes. And amongst those pronouncements are the pronouncements that have sought to demonize psychedelics.
We went over this in my Gaia vid, link below if you haven't seen it, but I'm going to drive it home one more time for good measure. The only people I've ever heard say that the war on drugs was about keeping people from the enlightenment of sacred plants are white people. Black and brown people fucking know better. And I'm not saying that no black or brown people have ever said this about plant medicines and the war on drugs. I've just never heard it. It's always white, hippie, wooey people with conspiratorial tendencies. They're the only people that say this because they're privileged enough to do so. And I'm not saying white people weren't also getting locked up or strung out on dope during the war on drugs, but all statistics show that black and brown people were handed down much, much harsher prison sentences than white people did. I am so freaking sick of hearing this shit. The goddamn prison industrial complex wasn't built on busting people for using plant medicines. It was built on giving black people 20 years for the same amount of crack cocaine that a white dude would get 6 months for. And the psychedelic community really needs to let go of this whole separation from spirit as a tool of control thing. You know, the powers that be don't want us spiritually aware and so on. It's usually followed up with something about the Freemasons or the Rockefellers or the Rothschilds or the Illuminati. And then they always say, but there's a global shift in consciousness coming. We will return to shamanism and goddess worship, and we'll heal the planet and end all the wars, and we'll all run around naked in the woods playing grab ass and picking mushrooms. One big freaky deaky pagan holiday sounds a lot better than late stage capitalism and melting polar caps and nuclear holocaust, but yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. Look around, people. I fell for it back in 2000 with the whole Age of Aquarius thing. I fell for it back in 2012 with the end of the Mayan calendar. I'm not falling for it during the second psychedelic revolution, okay? This global shift in consciousness ain't coming. Sorry, I just needed to get that rant out. All right. Back to Graham Hancock and the land of ancient Egypt.
What I want to show is that some of the most beautiful, some of the most deep thinking, some of the most significant civilizations of the past have given an honored place to psychedelics. And indeed, psychedelics have been central to everything that they did. And this is true of ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt, which put its best minds to work for 3,000 years on the mysteries of reality and of the mysteries of what happens to us after death. When those ancient Egyptian priests were undertaking the investigations that led them to produce the pyramid texts, the books of the dead, and so on and so forth, they weren't simply sitting having fantasies in their armchairs. They were using visionary aids in order to explore the nature of reality.
They were just people, man. Psychedelics or not, it doesn't matter if they put their best minds on it for 3,000 years or for 30,000 years. It would still just be people wondering and taking their best guess. They weren't superhuman or more evolved or spiritually aware than anyone today.
This is not something that you will hear very often from Egyptologists. I think I could count on the fingers of one hand the number of Egyptologists who've ever taken a psychedelic. If we are to get to grips with ancient civilizations, it's important to get to grips with the psychedelic experience, because once you start to explore this, you find that it is universal in the ancient world.
And this is what I mean when I say Graham Hancock is highly skilled in his use of rhetoric. The dude has a black belt in using fallacious bullshit to make it seem like he's got equal or more knowledge to the people that actually know what the fuck they're talking about. Did you see what he did there with the, I think I could count on one hand the amount of Egyptologists that have even taken a psychedelic. That's what he's really trying to convey to the audience. I know more about ancient Egypt than those guys. Do not trust them. You can't trust science. Believe me instead. And his followers eat it up, too. They call themselves the Loyal Order of the Cock, or cocksters for short. I've gotten into arguments before in the comments with these hardcore cocksters. They hold the same animosity and are equally as dismissive and bitter towards real science as the Grand Cock himself is.
William Emberden's excellent book, I don't like the title Narcotic Plants. He does, amongst other things, draw our attention to the high status in which the opium poppy was held in ancient Egypt, as these illustrations show. But I'm more interested really in the datura flower and in the blue water lily, which we now understand is a powerful visionary agent. The scenes that show ancient Egyptian figures, sniffing the blue water lily, let's not imagine that that's what it's all about, because in fact traces of a liquid extract with the blue, from the blue water lily were discovered in alabaster jars stored in Tutankhamun's tomb.
The blue water lily had a great spiritual significance in ancient Egyptian culture as a symbol of rebirth and regeneration. They also found blue lily petals covering King Tut's mummy. I haven't tried it, but I've heard it's not really a powerful visionary agent. It just kind of makes you a little bit sleepy. So all this lily symbolism that we see definitely is not just related to its very, very mild psychoactive effects.
And something else as well, which my friend, the ethnopharmacologist Dennis McKenna, has been researching and has recently brought out, is if we take a look at the ancient Egyptian tree of life. Now there we see the god Thoth writing the name of Pharaoh Seti I on the tree of life. He's granting him the life of millions of years, which is granted to a perfected soul. If we look at that tree of life, we discover that it is in fact Acacia nilotica. And Acacia nilotica is a tree which is rich in dimethyltryptamine, in DMT.
This is a relief carving found at the temple complex in Karnak. Some sources say it's Seti I, but most sources cite it as depicting Ramses II. The tree species is unknown. It's referred to simply as the Ishid tree, or the tree of life, of which there were many over the years. Of course, it could be acacia, but most believe it to be a Percy tree. It could also be a lebbek, or a tamarisk, or a sycamore. I'm not sure if Dennis McKenna really believed this, or if he was just spitballing. I mean, he was definitely the more scientific of the two McKenna brothers. I really want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that Graham here is just name-dropping to sound cool. Everything I could find on the web says that Dennis McKenna did acknowledge that the only confirmed psychoactive plant in ancient Egypt so far is the blue lily. So I'm not sure why Graham just decided to bring up datura. And yes, acacia does contain DMT, but there could be other reasons why the ancient Egyptians held that tree as sacred. I'm not saying it's impossible. I mean, I guess if ancient shaman from the Amazon could figure out how to make ayahuasca, it's possible the ancient Egyptians figured out how to make something out of acacia and Syrian rue. But until we find some jars with some residue in it, or some ancient Egyptian text with the recipe for how to make it, it's all just speculation.
A chemical operation is involved in getting the DMT out of the bark of Acacia nilotica. And many would say that the ancient Egyptians went up to that level of chemistry, but I think we should ask ourselves where we get the word chemistry from. And actually the word chemistry comes from Kemet, the ancient name for Egypt. The Arabs referred to alchemit, and that's where we get alchemy from, and the very word chemistry comes from ancient Egypt itself. And my own research has led me to be quite confident that the ancient Egyptians would have been able to extract DMT from the bark of Acacia nilotica. We know what the ancient Egyptians were smoking.
No, we don't. Oh, man. Yeah, based off what, hotshot? Why didn't you become super famous for being the first guy to discover DMT in ancient Egypt? Oh, 'cause you're talking out your ass? Jesus Christ, just because the word chemistry comes from the word chemet does not mean anything at all. And all of this BS robs the ancient Egyptians of their due credit for all the amazing chemistry they did do. The blue pigments, perfumes, cosmetics, metallurgy, glass, pottery. But you can't say we know something until you can show it to be true. Dennis McKenna and this one relief carving from Karnak is not enough, buddy. And you wonder why you're always shunned by actual scholars.
And it sheds light on scenes like this mysterious scene from the second shrine of Tutankhamun, where we see the initiate connected through the third eye to a star in the skies as though he's receiving some influence. And of course, the third eye is the pineal gland. Rick Strassman's research at the Cottonwood Foundation and researches of others is beginning to home in very much on the pineal gland as the source of our endogenous DMT, because of course we all are illegal in this room.
The third eye originated in India through Hinduism and Buddhism, not Egypt. The ancient Egyptians did not have a concept of a third eye. The pineal gland was not sacred, nor were the brains at all, for that matter. Your heart went into a special jar, your brains were pulled out and fed to the pigs. They believed the heart was the seat of the soul, intelligence, and emotion.
And in that context, this is a meme that's going around on the internet at the moment. It's not my work, but it is interesting to look at the Eye of Horus and the shape of the pineal gland and the staff of Osiris, and just to consider what's being indicated here. I think the ancient Egyptians were deep into the visionary and psychedelic experience, and that, more than anything else, explains the majestic beauty of their art and the transcendental power of their ideas as expressed in their ancient texts.
So no third eye, and no, the pineal gland does not produce DMT. This is a myth. Strassman did speculate and hypothesize in his book, but it was never confirmed and has since been disproven. And Strassman has acknowledged that. He actually showed up at our book club last year and said as much in person. But of course, it's way too late. Rogan and Hancock just kept on repeating this over the years, and now the internet is awash in this nonsense. Type how to release the body's natural DMT into the search bar on YouTube. All these videos will show up about sound baths and breath work and meditation and how to release the body's natural DMT, and it's all bunk. Based entirely on people's imagination, I guess, but it's not biology. This Eye of Horus pineal gland meme thing is probably one of the dumbest things he says in this entire video. A total fabrication by idiots and for idiots. Sometimes stuff just kind of looks like other stuff. It happens all the time and usually means nothing at all. Look up Paridolia. Okay. That wraps up ancient Egypt. Moving on.
In their civilization, not something to be marginalized, feared, and hated, but something brought to the fore and manifested through symbolic art. And we begin to understand that it may be the case that all of the religions of the world are based, if you scratch them deep enough, on the psychedelic experience. I'm thinking of Moses at the burning bush, what was going on there. My friend Benny Shannon, who's professor of psychology at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, has strongly argued that Moses was drinking an ayahuasca analog. I mean, you don't get Psychotria viridis and Banisteriopsis carpi in the Sinai, but you do get Syrian rue and mimosa. So the experience of that bush speaking to Moses sounds a lot like a psychedelic vision.
Okay, I'll give Mr. Hancock this one. I've personally had psychedelic experiences when in that moment of peak spiritual bliss, it feels like you're experiencing the wisdom that's at the root of every religion that's ever been. I too have wondered if the burning bush story was meant as an allegory for that moment of psychedelic enlightenment. I've also wondered if little gnomes come out at night and they've been stealing my socks and hiding my car keys. Seeing on how Moses from the Bible wasn't actually a real guy, there's only so much I'm willing to consider whether this fictional dude was tripping balls or not. This 2008 paper by Benny Shannon that Graham is referring to has been widely dismissed by biblical scholars and archaeologists and scientists and anyone else that has two goddamn brain cells to rub together.
The Olmec, the precursor culture of the Maya in Central America, venerating Amanita muscaria. Again, we can see it quite clearly in their art here. All of this is undeniable. It's not something that we're making up. All of these ancient civilizations venerated and gave an important place to the psychedelics. And of course, many in this room are familiar with the work of Gordon Wasson, the suggestion that the mysterious substance called Soma in the Vedas was Amanita muscaria, the fly agaric, which is best consumed after being passed through a number of human bodies. Or in the case of the far north, typically the shamans will consume the urine of reindeer who have eaten Amanita muscaria. In the Vedas, we have an account of the priests drinking soma and pissing soma. And as a matter of fact, Amanita muscaria, it seems that passage through a human body removes the impurities and makes Amanita muscaria much more effective as a brew. It seems that it can be passed through 7 human bodies before it loses its efficacy. So the soma of the Vedas, very likely also a hallucinogenic brew.
And this is the other reason I wanted to make this video. This silliness about drinking recycled piss is still going around psychedelic circles today. Gordon Wasson was just guessing. He'd heard something about Siberian shamans collecting yellow snow left behind by reindeer or drinking recycled piss, and there was documentation about this being practiced in Siberia, but how widely it was practiced has been outrageously exaggerated by psychedelic lore. It wasn't really that commonplace in Siberian cultures. In 1968, Gordon Wasson wrote a book called Soma, Divine Mushroom of Immortality. And in this book, he did a whole lot of speculating. Soma could have been Amanita muscaria, I suppose, but nobody really knows for sure. There's nothing in the Vedic scriptures at all that says anything about mushrooms or priests drinking piss or any of that stuff. This was all one guy saying if Soma was Amanita, then maybe they were drinking piss just like these people in Siberia. I still hear this one all the time like it's well-known common psychedelic knowledge. It's not. But listen to how confidently Graham says this shit. In the Veda, we have an account of priests drinking and pissing, and no, we don't. I'm not really upset with Wasson at all. He was off the mark with this Soma thing, but overall he did great things as a pioneer in entheogenic studies. I think Graham and others are doing a great disservice to Gordon Wasson and his legacy as a writer and a natural historian by repeating all the stuff he got wrong instead of celebrating the things he did that were meaningful. Things he contributed to entheogenic and religious studies, as well as mycology and anthropology. Graham doesn't give 2 flying fucks about any of that stuff, though. The guy is a freaking parasite. People really need to stop validating and co-signing his bullshit and inviting him on psychedelic podcasts and stuff.
If we go off to ancient Greece, the Eleusinian mysteries were arguably the heart of the high civilization of Greece, an extraordinary experience that pilgrims underwent over a period of well over 2,000 years, going to Eleusis, going into the Telestrion, into darkened corridors and chambers, drinking a brew called the kykeon, and then having revelations.
This kykeon he's talking about from ancient Greece is another one of those things where nobody knows for sure what it was exactly. Some researchers just published a paper where they demonstrated it was possible to get LSA from ergot using soda ash. I'll put the link below so you can all check it out. It's nothing definitive saying for sure. It's just, they published a worth reading paper showing it was feasible. All of this comes from a poem by Homer, but he just lists simple ingredients like herbs and milk. They have found ergot alkaloids in pottery at a temple site in Spain, and they've also detected it in dental plaque. So there's slightly more evidence pointing to kykeon possibly containing an LSA alkaloid than there is for soma being made from amanita, but still. This stuff is highly debated by historians, so if anyone ever says that they know for sure it was LSA, give them the old stink eye for me, would you? One thing we do know for sure, though, is these women are not holding mushrooms. These are flowers. The name of the carving is The Exaltation of the Flower. Flowers! Jeez! Sometimes it feels like I'm the only psychonaut on planet Earth that decided to Google this shit. If they were mushrooms, I would be doing backflips about it just like everybody else. But they're flowers, y'all. Flowers.
We shouldn't be surprised to find the use of psychedelics at the heart of so many advanced civilizations, because actually psychedelics appear to have played a key role in the emergence of modern human behavior. Now, I want to pay tribute right at the outset to the incredible work of the late, great Terence McKenna. Truly a brilliant man, and it's so wonderful that he lives on with us through the internet, and we can all be inspired by what he has to say. One of the great liberation thinkers of all times, and his book, Food of the Gods, I would highly recommend in implicating the psychedelics, in ushering us into modern human behavior. But it's important to understand that there's a vast body of academic research behind this as well, and that this research goes back to the early 1970s.
Oh, dear Lord, fuck me, Sally. I hate this guy so much. Oh, all of a sudden, Mr. Hancock cares about the vast body of academic knowledge. When it comes to the vast body of academic and scientific research into things like ancient Egypt, or hunter-gatherers, or Göbekli Tepe, or consciousness, or the war on drugs, well, in that case, he has all this special insight and knowledge that all the clumsy and clueless and close-minded idiots in mainstream science have either willingly ignored or carelessly overlooked or have yet to figure out. So he totally knows way more than they do. He spends his entire career both stealing the hard work done by legit scientists and researchers while also repeating ad nauseum to his fans and followers that legit science is inherently untrustworthy and deliberately deceiving you. But when this intellectually dishonest, taint-sniffing twat waffle thinks it suits him, then all of a sudden there's a vast body of academic research into this. And surprise, surprise, Graham is about to misrepresent this research to prop up some bullshit about the stoned ape hypothesis. And we're gonna get into all of that, but Jesus Christ, that's so frustrating. The one time he finally wants to give credit to the vast body of academic research, and it's so he can lie his fucking silly ass off about it. Man, I'm telling you, this shit is dangerous. I've argued with Graham Hancock's fans. They are just as anti-science as he is. They're just as bad as the damn evangelical young earth creationist crowd. The people that don't believe in the Big Bang or evolution and think that the earth is 6,000 years old. Listen to this bullshit dance he does in just this one clip. How he bobs and weaves between acknowledging legit archaeological sites and dates while also talking shit about legit archaeology. I think from this point on, for the rest of the video, I'm just simply gonna call this guy Mr. Cock.
Peru now, a site that's been excavated in the last decade, is Caral, where we find pyramids every bit as old as the pyramids of Giza, going back at least to 2,500, 3,000 BC. Against the paradigm that mainstream history has tried to force upon us, that civilizations were built up through warfare, through mobilizing hierarchies who mobilized forces to make war upon one another, there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever for any war at Caral. There's evidence for cooperative mutually nurturing trading networks. And amongst the items that were traded, and archaeology has demonstrated this, were hallucinogenic snuffs from the Amazon. So the earliest pyramid civilization we've so far discovered in the Americas enshrined the use of hallucinogenic snuffs right at the center of its way of life. If we go off to Tiwanaku, in Bolivia, this is an aerial shot looking down on what's left of the Acapana pyramid and of the Calasasía. We will find that there are interesting statues in Tiwanaku, this extraordinary city, which may be much older than the 2,000 years given to it by archaeology.
Do you see what I mean? It's beyond ridiculous. Mainstream science is forcing a paradigm upon us, but there's also all this archaeology demonstrating finding these hallucinogenic snuffs. This is the earliest pyramid culture science ever discovered, but also this site is likely way older than the dates given by mainstream archaeology, because I say so. Fallacious, greasy-ass, parasitic cherry-picking like this is science denial. Mr. Cock has no real science behind him, so he needs to act like he's the only trustworthy voice, and therefore he's the final arbiter of what is and isn't real science. It's always they're lying, and I'm the only guy out there that's really trying to get to the truth about our ancient past. This shit turns people into science deniers. It's the same reason flat earthers think they know more about gravity and physics and shit than the people that study physics or work at NASA. Okay, back to Mr. Cock and his god-awful take on the stoned ape bullshit.
But it's important to understand that there's a vast body of academic research behind this as well, and that this research goes back to the early 1970s. This is what I call 6 million years of boredom. The evolutionary story from the last common ancestor with the chimpanzee about 6 million years ago through to anatomically modern humans.
Oh man, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm so sick of hearing this lying dingleberry that I really don't think I have the patience to make it through the stoned ape. Okay, breathe, finding my happy place. Breathe. Oh, fuck, it's not helping. Okay, I'm bringing out the big guns that always ensure a state of serenity. Cue me up, the snoring squirrel. That fucking squirrel. That squirrel snores louder than my grandma. Oh, it's delightful. Okay, I needed that. Oh man, oh yeah, stoned ape. Fine, let's do it. Mr. Cock never really uses the phrase stoned ape theory, but it's pretty much what he's getting at. Stoned ape is something that sounds really cool, but has never had any real hard science behind it. The people that study human evolution and anthropology and neuroscience for a living don't take it even a little bit seriously. And much love and all the respect to Terence McKenna, but brother, this was your biggest swing and a miss. Hey, they all can't be brilliant ideas, alright? That's just how it goes. You still did great things for psychedelics, and we love you for it. Stoned ape theory is one of those things that would be completely fringe and obscure if not for America's most outspoken Dunning-Kruger dipshit, the lord of the stoned apes himself, Joe fucking Rogan. Dennis McKenna has also kind of helped keep the stoned ape alive, but he's also willing to admit it is just speculation. So basically, the stoned ape nonsense is only a thing because of all the times that Mr. Cock here has went on Joe Rogan's podcast and how convincing Joe Rogan found the idea. Everybody else in psychedelics will refer to it as a thought experiment of sorts. But it doesn't matter because it's already too late, the damage has been done, and the stoned ape torch has been carried into the modern era. It now permeates every corner of the internet and psychedelic culture. Check out this dummy to see what I mean.
And then that's what caused the stoned ape theory, which I fully believe in, by the way. If you don't know about the stoned ape theory, quit living under a rock. But basically what I think happened was, and Terrence McKenna and the McKenna brothers formulated this actually. They started roaming the plains and searching for new food, and they found these mushrooms under cow shit. And over hundreds of thousands of years of eating these mushrooms and psilocybin, their brains grew and eventually turned into humans.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I'll leave a link to Neurotransmission's video on the stoned ape. She does an amazing job, so please check it out. Okay, folks, thanks for toughing it out for the long haul. We have a couple more topics to check out. Let's call it good with the stoned ape and move on to Mr. Cock's equally stupid take on cave art and cave paintings.
This is Chauvet Cave in France, 33,000 years ago. We see a bison man straddling a female figure. The female figure is headless, but her right arm is transforming into the head of a lion. This is a moment of transformation, of shape-shifting that's being depicted here. You do not see that when you're out hunting on the plains in an alert, problem-solving state of consciousness. You don't see a woman turning into a lion, you know. But there are certain states of consciousness where we do see such things. And those states of consciousness are documented all around the world. In South Africa, these eland men with the heads of elands and the bodies of human beings, these antelope humans turning into antelopes or perched on a zigzag. And then there's all kinds of patterns like this grid between two ibexes from Lascaux, and these flows of dots and grids that we find on the wall of El Castillo Cave in Spain.
This is just plain dumb. Is it possible that some of these cave painting artists were tripping on mushrooms? Sure. Is it definitive proof that they definitely were? Hell no. People are really creative. It's totally possible that humans could come up with these wild drawings and carvings and weird animal people and strange patterns all on their own.
I want to draw attention to the work of Professor David Lewis Williams at the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa. And what put him on the right track was studying work that had been done with hallucinogenic substances and human volunteers back before the war on drugs really kicked in and stopped perhaps the most important research on consciousness from being undertaken for the best part of the last 40 or 50 years. But if we go back to those early studies, we find that the volunteers put into a deeply altered state of consciousness with psychedelics were depicting very interesting and distinctive patterns. They often described a sense of going through a vortex into a seamlessly convincing parallel universe, and on the other side of that vortex they would meet intelligent entities who would communicate with them telepathically, and often those entities took the form of therianthropes, part animal, part human. Here a volunteer on mescaline in the 60s depicts one of the entities he encountered who's wearing a modern business suit but has the head of a fox. Essentially the same entity as the lion man and the bison man from the painted caves of Europe.
As my grandma would say, Ay Jesu Cristo de mi vida, which means, fuck me, Jesus Christ, this guy. Yeah, this fox in a suit is essentially identical to this carving of this lion guy. Graham uses this one account from one guy at one mescaline study 60 years ago as airtight, irrefutable proof that all this weird cave art stuff had to have been conceived and created while high on mushrooms. So dumb.
David calls this the neuropsychological theory of cave art. He refuses to take psychedelics himself. He had an argument with another anthropologist or archaeologist called Paul Barn, who also refuses to take psychedelics. Paul Barn was saying that psychedelics couldn't have been involved in the cave art. David Lewis Williams was saying they could. I said, you know, that's like a couple of celibate monks discussing sex, really. Nonetheless, David has done really excellent work.
Jeez, what a dick. There he goes again with that shit. First, he praises this guy for his amazing work on this cave art book that Graham really loves, and then chucks him under the bus with this whole, he refuses to even take a psychedelic. Again, stating that I know more about this topic than the guy that wrote this book I'm talking about, and I'm sharing with everyone, and I'm plundering all these slides and pictures and studies from, is written by a clueless archaeologist that doesn't really know what the fuck he's talking about because he doesn't do psychedelics and I do. Even though he's a legit archaeologist and I'm not. You know what, Mr. Cock? If this guy is a celibate monk trying to talk about sex, then that makes you Bill freaking Cosby trying to talk about sex. Because the people you're sticking it to are not cognitively aware enough to realize they're getting screwed by you.
His work has gradually forced its way through into the mainstream, and now the majority of scholars do accept that we're looking at an art of visions, shamanistic art in the art of the cave, of the painted caves. We can't go back and actually interview those artists, but their art itself leaves no doubt whatsoever that they were depicting experiences encountered in visionary states, in shamanistic altered states of consciousness, and is evidence that psychedelics were being used. But if we were in any doubt, we can now accept the word of New Scientist magazine for the earliest evidence of magic mushroom use in Europe from Salva Pasquale mural, where we see Psilocybe hispanica on one of the paintings from the painted caves.
So says you, Mr. Not an Archaeologist guy. Here he is again pretending that he gives a shit what the majority of mainstream scholars are and aren't accepting these days. Now, if there's any doubt whatsoever, we can accept the findings of this science magazine. This one depiction of mushrooms in a cave is proof that every painting and carving that ever existed was created while high on mushrooms, with zero room for any doubt whatsoever. Sure, dude.
And in the light of this evidence from the painted caves, we need to take a fresh look at ancient art from all around the world, because it seems that psychedelics have played a much greater part in the story of civilization than has hitherto been admitted. You can immediately see the shape-shifting parallels here from the Tolita ceramic in Ecuador and from the painted caves. The therianthropes. What about Theseus and the Minotaur? What about this bull man and this lion man? What about these figures from ancient Mesopotamia? All the gods of ancient Egypt were therianthropes. Again, these are classic entities of the visionary state. So it seems that the high civilizations of antiquity made great use of psychedelics.
What about Donald Duck? What about Daffy Duck? Or what about Mickey Mouse? What about Mighty Mouse? These are classic entities and therianthropes must have been conceived during shamanistic visionary states of consciousness. This one is so ridiculous that even Mr. Cock's most loyal fans are probably like, yeah, that's a bit of a stretch, homeboy. Every god and every myth had to have come from some psychedelic vision? Okay, folks, I think that's a good place to leave it for today. But after all of this, there is no doubt in my mind whatsoever that Mr. Cock knows exactly what he's doing. Nobody uses slippery, fallacious rhetoric this consistently unless they are intentionally and deliberately trying to be deceptive. Mr. Cock's work is not accepted by the mainstream for a very good reason, and he hates that. He's bitter about science because science holds him to a standard he will always fall short of. He wants to live in a world where that standard doesn't exist, where all his goofy ideas and theories would be equally as valued as actual knowledge. A world where his work is as equally plausible as the current scientific understanding, as if it's been wrung out and can stand on its own merit just like science when it can't. And his chicken shit workaround to this is to run back to Daddy Rogan or someone else's podcast so he can whine about how much science hates freedom and liberty. Why can't we present both sides and let the people decide? You know, freedom, baby.
So I value and respect archaeology. I think it's an incredible tool for investigating our past. But I wish archaeologists would bring a slightly gentler frame of mind to it and a slightly opener perspective. And also that archaeologists would be willing to trust the general public to make up their own minds. It's as though certain archaeologists are afraid of the public being presented with an alternative point of view, which they regard as quote unquote dangerous, because they somehow underestimate the intelligence of the general public and think the general public are just going to accept that. Actually, by condemning those alternative point of view, archaeologists make it much more likely that the general public will accept those alternative point of view, because there is a great distrust of experts in our society today. And behaving in a snobbish, arrogant way, we archaeologists are the only people who are really qualified to speak about the past, and anybody else who speaks about the past is dangerous. That actually is not helpful to archaeology in the long term.
Science is always so mean to people with alternative theories, blah, 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 blah. There's always this big conspiracy in science and academia to suppress him and keep him down. It's not that at all. He just has nothing but silly fairy tales. He's a used car salesman selling crappy cars, and of course he's gonna love those customers that just show up and hand him a big bag of money and drive away and never ask any questions, and he's always going to be extremely irritated with the customers that show up and want to lift the hood and kick the tires and ask a bunch of questions to make sure it's not stolen before they drive off. And he likes to frame this skepticism as some type of cancel culture, as if these people asking questions about this crappy used car is some effort to put him out of business altogether. People are hardwired to be drawn towards beautiful myths, comforting lies, and interesting delusions over a boring, dull, harsh reality. It's human nature. People that have trained their brains how to think critically are the exact opposite. I know, I am one. So I know when you embrace the boring, ugly, harsh reality long enough, it forces you to see it on deeper levels. Life becomes magical and fascinating and awe-inspiring and filled with beauty and mystery and wonder, and it requires zero pretending. That's why Mr. Cock hates science so much. He has to pretend and feed himself a bunch of nonsense for life to be magical. We don't. He has to lie for a living, and science doesn't. You know, it's also in human nature that people want to know when they're being lied to, or tricked, or scammed, or conned, and they tend to get a little upset with the person that's doing all the lying and scamming. That's why I made this video. Alright, y'all. Peace out. See you next time.
I've been one chord correspondent. I've been too hard to find, but